What's up guys? So when I reflect on my backpacking trips, I seem to mostly remember the good times. But backpacking isn't just a highlight reel of good experiences, it's full of challenges. Missed flights, food poisoning, getting scammed, or just getting lost in the city. I had my fair share of bad experiences, so here are my 3 worst experiences abroad. Number 3, crashing my motorbike in Vietnam. During the month I spent in Vietnam, I did a 5-day motorbike tour called the Ha Giang Loop. I was riding my brakes down a particularly rough patch of road when I lost control of the bike and crashed. It happened super quick. It was like I blinked and I was on the ground. It was a really shocking and humbling experience. Luckily, one of the Dutch guys I was with had a first aid kit, so he helped me wrap up my arm. The only other thing that was messed up is my thumb got caught behind the accelerator, and so my left thumb was pretty jacked up for a while, but overall, I was extremely lucky. Number 2, getting dengue fever from Cambodia. There's nothing more humbling than getting so sick you can't get out of bed for a week, and that was my experience in Singapore. I arrived to Singapore from Cambodia feeling great, but then 3 days into my trip, I got sicker than I've ever been in my life. It was the first time I was seriously ill on my backpacking trip, so I figured I would just wait it out. I was actually in my bed watching this documentary about Southeast Asia on my phone, and at the end of the documentary, it mentioned that the author of the film died of malaria, and so that just made me super anxious since I had just spent over a month in countries with really high rates of malaria and dengue fever. Here are some of the maps that show you the rates of dengue fever and malaria in the countries I had just been in. It's usually right around the coast by the water, and I had just spent a bunch of time right around that area, and so I was pretty worried about it. Eventually I talked to my hostel and located a clinic. Waiting in line at that crowded clinic was easily one of the lowest points of my trip. I really didn't want to worry my parents, but I did call my sister and I was just in shambles. I mean, I was pretty messed up. After a couple of hours of waiting at the clinic, I was seen by a doctor. He gave me a ton of medication and told me to come back in the morning to get a dengue fever and a malaria test. The medication helped a lot, but I was sick for another week, but eventually I got my results back for the test. I was happy to find out that it was dengue fever and not malaria, since malaria is obviously a lot more serious. I recovered and left Singapore, but I was like low energy and fatigued for a couple months after this experience. Oh, and my visit to the clinic was only $150 with all the medication and the 2 tests they gave me, so I was really lucky that that wasn't super expensive. Number 1, getting jumped in Denmark. So this took place when I was doing my study abroad in Denmark when I was 15. I went to downtown Copenhagen with 2 friends, and as we were returning back to my friend's apartment, we started getting followed. We eventually got surrounded. There was a lot of pushing and yelling. They're asking for our money, but they actually never got any money from us. We got a little beat up, but I feel very lucky to have come out of that situation okay. When we got back to the apartment, we didn't even think to call the police because it had already happened. There was really nothing you could do at that point, so very strange experience. And that one actually had some lasting effects. I became really worried that that same situation would come up again, and I began to feel insecure about my ability to defend myself. Those insecurities eventually faded, actually with the help of martial arts, but that wasn't until 2 years later, and I thought about this type of stuff for a long time. A few notable mentions. When I was in Bangkok, Thailand, I had really bad food sickness, so I wasn't in a good state, and as I got into the cab to go to the airport, I left my camera bag in the hostel with my passport in it. But I didn't realize that until I got into the airport, and immediately, as soon as I got out of the cab, I realized I didn't have my passport. I turned around and hopped back in the cab, what I thought was the same cab. It wasn't. Dude didn't speak any English, and he just started driving me. So we drove for 15 minutes before I was able to borrow his phone and call the hostel. Then the hostel was able to explain to him in Thai where the hostel was. He eventually took me back, but I missed that flight. That was the only flight I missed. It was like $100. I was really sick, and the experience in the taxi was pretty strange. I also can't even count the number of times where I got lost walking around the city, lost using public transportation, or on my motorbike in rural parts of Asia. I'm telling these stories not to deter you from traveling, but just to be transparent about all of the challenges that come with it. I make a lot of videos about the good times, so I thought I'd dedicate this one to all the bad. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.